There are moments in life when silence is louder than noise. When the world does not shout, yet something inside you is screaming. These are not ordinary days. These are days that test who you truly are. Not what you say, not what you promise, but what you do when comfort is removed. God said, do or die, not as a threat, as a mirror. Because there comes a time when delay becomes disobedience. When hesitation becomes a decision against your own destiny. December 17th, 18 and 19 are not magical because of the calendar. They are critical because you are no longer allowed to stay the same. This is the moment where excuses expire. You are not here by accident. Awareness begins the moment you stop asking why this is happening and start asking what is being asked of you. Most people move through life like sleepwalkers, reacting instead of choosing, drifting instead of directing. They confuse movement with progress and noise with meaning. But awareness is different. Awareness is the instant you realize that something has changed inside you, even if the outside world looks the same. It is the quiet recognition that you have reached a point where continuing the same way is no longer possible without consequences. When God says do or die, it is not a dramatic sentence meant to frighten you. It is a statement of reality. It is the moment when life removes the illusion of unlimited time. You suddenly feel it, the weight of your choices, the heaviness of delay, the pressure of unfinished work, unspoken truth, and unfulfilled potential. This pressure is not punishment. It is awareness sharpening your vision. It is life narrowing your path so you can no longer pretend that every direction is acceptable. Awareness is uncomfortable because it takes away excuses. Before awareness, you can blame circumstances, people, luck, timing, or fate. After awareness, all of that collapses. You see clearly that what you tolerate, you choose. What you delay, you decide against. What you avoid, you allow to control you. This is why many people resist awareness. They would rather stay busy than stay honest. They would rather distract themselves than sit alone with the truth that something must change now. December 17, 18, and 19 are not important because they are dates. They are important because awareness has reached a peak. The mind can ignore signals for a long time, but the body and the spirit keep score. Restlessness, frustration, anger without a clear target. Sadness that appears without reason. The feeling that time is slipping through your hands. These are not weaknesses. These are signs that awareness is breaking through the surface. Something in you knows that the old way no longer fits. Awareness means standing at the edge. Not the edge of disaster, but the edge of transformation. The edge is where comfort ends and responsibility begins. From here you can see both directions clearly. Behind you is the familiar life, the habits you know, the excuses you have perfected, the comfort of staying small, the safety of blaming others. Ahead of you is uncertainty, effort, discipline, and growth. Awareness does not push you. It simply shows you the truth. Staying where you are will cost you more than moving forward. Many people misunderstand spiritual messages. They expect comfort, reassurance, and softness, but real guidance often comes as pressure. When God speaks through awareness, He does not beg, He reveals. He shows you the consequences of inaction as clearly as the rewards of action. This is why awareness feels heavy. You are no longer ignorant. You are accountable. At this stage, pretending becomes exhausting. You can no longer lie to yourself without feeling the tension. You can no longer escape into distractions without feeling empty afterward. Even pleasure loses its sweetness when awareness has awakened. This is not because something is wrong with you. It is because you have outgrown the life you are still living. Shi Heng Yi often emphasizes that clarity comes before strength. Awareness is that clarity. Before discipline, before commitment, before transformation, there must be a moment where you see yourself honestly. Not the version you show the world, but the version that appears when no one is watching. Awareness asks difficult questions. Are you living according to your values or your fears? Are you using your time intentionally or wasting it unconsciously? Are you becoming stronger or simply older? The edge is frightening because it removes the comfort of delay. At the edge, there is no later. There is only now. This is why the message says no second chance. Not because the universe is cruel, but because awareness does not repeat itself endlessly. Life sends signals again and again, but there comes a point when the lesson becomes urgent. When awareness reaches this level, ignoring it leads to stagnation, bitterness, and regret. Awareness is the moment you realize that waiting for motivation is a trap. Motivation comes and goes, but awareness stays. It stays in the quiet moments, in the silence before sleep, in the heaviness of waking up, knowing you are capable of more. Once awareness has arrived, you cannot unknow what you know. You cannot return to innocent ignorance. You can only move forward or suffer the consequences of staying still. Standing at the edge also means recognizing your power. Awareness is not weakness. It is strength awakening. You see that you are not helpless, but responsible. You see that change does not begin with the world changing, but with you deciding. This realization can feel overwhelming, because responsibility is heavier than blame, but it is also liberating because responsibility means control. God said do or die because awareness has shown you that neutrality is no longer an option. There is no standing still. You are either moving toward growth or drifting toward decay. Even rest must be intentional now. Even silence must have purpose. Awareness refines your perception so sharply that wasted energy becomes painful. These critical days represent a narrowing of focus. Awareness removes distractions and forces you to look directly at what matters. It strips life down to essentials: your habits, your discipline, your courage, your integrity. Everything else becomes noise. This is why awareness can feel lonely. Not everyone around you will understand what you are feeling. Some will tell you to relax, to slow down, to not take life so seriously. But awareness knows better. Awareness knows that comfort at this stage is dangerous. The edge is also where fear appears most clearly. Not fear of failure, but fear of success. Fear of responsibility. Fear of becoming someone who can no longer hide. Awareness shows you that if you step forward, you will have no excuse left, and that is terrifying. But it is also the beginning of freedom. Awareness does not demand perfection. It demands honesty. It asks you to stop pretending that you do not know what must be done. You already know which habits weaken you. You already know which actions you have been avoiding. You already know where you have been compromising your standards. Awareness simply brings these truths to the surface and says now. This is why these days feel critical. Not because something external will happen, but because something internal has reached a turning point. Awareness has brought you to a crossroads where continuing the same way will cost you your self-respect. And once self-respect is lost, everything else follows. At the edge, you begin to understand that time is not your enemy, but your teacher. Time reveals patterns. It shows you what works and what doesn't. Awareness uses time as evidence. It shows you that repeating the same behavior has produced the same results. And it asks you, calmly, but firmly, how long will you continue? Do or die is awareness speaking without decoration. Either you act in alignment with what you know, or you slowly suffocate under the weight of your own potential. The dying here is not physical. It is spiritual. It is the slow erosion of confidence, clarity, and purpose that comes from ignoring your inner truth. Awareness is a gift, but it is not gentle. It wakes you up whether you are ready or not. It pulls you out of comfortable illusions and places you face to face with reality. But if you have reached this point, it means you are capable of handling it. Life does not demand more than you can give. It only demands more than you have been giving. Stand at the edge with calmness. Do not rush backward into comfort. Do not panic at the height. Breathe. Observe. Accept that this moment has arrived for a reason. Awareness has chosen you now because you are ready now. from this place. There is no need for drama, only clarity. You do not need to announce your awareness to the world. You only need to respect it. Respect it by listening. Respect it by acting. Respect it by not betraying what you now see clearly. This is the first step. Not action yet, not discipline yet, but recognition. You are at the edge. The old life cannot continue. The new life has not begun. Awareness stands between them, waiting for your decision. When awareness has done its work, there is no room left for illusion. You already see clearly. You already know what must change. At this point, belief alone is useless. Intention alone is weak. Words alone are empty. What remains is discipline. This is why it is said that action becomes the only prayer left. Not spoken prayer, not emotional prayer, but embodied prayer, the kind that is expressed through what you do when no one is watching. Discipline is misunderstood. Many think it is harsh, punishing, or restrictive. In truth, discipline is clarity in motion. It is respect for your own awareness. When God speaks through discipline, He does not ask how you feel. He asks what you are willing to do. Because feelings rise and fall, but discipline creates direction. At this stage of life, waiting for motivation is no longer acceptable. Motivation is unstable. It depends on mood, comfort, and circumstance. Discipline, on the other hand, is neutral. It does not argue. It does not negotiate. It simply acts. When you wake up early even when your body resists, that is discipline. When you train your body though it acts, that is discipline. When you silence distractions and sit with discomfort, that is discipline. And discipline, repeated daily, becomes devotion. Shi Heng Yi often reminds that the body is the first temple. If you cannot command your own body, how can you command your life? Discipline begins with the physical, because the physical does not lie. The body reveals your habits honestly. If you are weak in discipline, the body shows it. If you are strong, the body shows that too. This is why action is the prayer God listens to, because it is honest. Do or die means this: either you impose structure on yourself, or life will impose suffering on you. There is no third option. Life without discipline does not stay neutral. It deteriorates. Chaos always fills the space where structure is absent. This is not punishment, it is law. Discipline hurts in the beginning because it exposes how undisciplined you have been. The pain is not caused by the effort itself, but by the resistance inside you. That resistance is the ego fighting for comfort. The ego wants ease, excuses, and escape. Discipline does not destroy the ego, it trains it. It teaches the ego that it does not rule. Action as prayer means that you no longer ask for strength, you generate it. You no longer ask for clarity, you create it through repetition. Every disciplined action sharpens the mind. Every completed task builds trust with yourself. And self-trust is the foundation of confidence. December 17, 18, and 19 are critical not because they demand extraordinary actions, but because they demand consistency. Anyone can do something once. Discipline is doing it again the next day, and the next, without applause. God does not respond to dramatic gestures. He responds to steady alignment. There is a moment in discipline when the mind begins to quiet. Not because the work is easy, but because the mind understands that resistance is pointless. This is where discipline transforms into peace. You move, not angrily, not forcefully, but decisively. This decisiveness is power. Most people fail here because they want discipline to feel good. But discipline feels good only after it becomes identity. At first, it feels heavy. It feels restrictive. It feels like loss. You are losing old habits, old comforts, old excuses. But what you gain is far greater control. Action is the only prayer left because words have already been spoken too many times. You have promised yourself change before. You have planned before. You have hoped before. Discipline is the moment you stop asking life to change and start changing yourself. When you discipline your time, you show respect for your life. When you discipline your body, you show respect for your potential. When you discipline your mind, You show respect for truth. These forms of respect are louder than any spoken belief. There will be days when discipline feels meaningless, days when results are invisible, days when progress seems slow. These days are tests of sincerity. Anyone can be disciplined when results are immediate. Only the committed remain disciplined when nothing seems to happen. And it is precisely in those days that character is forged. God said, "Do or die," because half discipline is self-deception. Doing something occasionally changes nothing. Discipline must be sharp, clear, and consistent. It must cut away what weakens you. Sleep that dulls you, food that numbs you, entertainment that drains you, conversations that keep you small. Discipline asks hard questions and expects honest answers. Action as prayer also means silence, less talking, less explaining, less convincing others. Discipline does not need witnesses. It needs repetition. The more disciplined you become, the less you feel the need to announce it. Your energy changes. Your presence changes. People feel it without you speaking. At this level, excuses become unbearable. You see them forming in your mind before they reach your mouth. You recognize them as attempts to escape responsibility. Discipline interrupts excuses with movement. Instead of thinking, you act. Instead of complaining, you train. Instead of waiting, you begin. There is humility in discipline. You accept that you are not yet who you want to be. You accept that growth requires effort. You bow to the process. This humility is spiritual strength. Pride resists discipline because pride wants recognition without work. Discipline does not negotiate with pride. As the days pass, disciplined action begins to reshape your identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone who tries and start seeing yourself as someone who does. This shift is subtle but profound. Confidence grows quietly. Fear loses its grip, doubt weakens. Do or die is not about intensity for 3 days. It is about setting a standard that continues beyond them. These days are the ignition, not the destination. Discipline lit here must be protected afterward. Otherwise, the message was ignored. Action is the only prayer left because it aligns heaven and earth within you. Thought aligns with movement. Intention aligns with effort. Awareness aligns with behavior. This alignment creates inner peace, not because life is easy, but because you are no longer divided against yourself. In disciplined action, you meet resistance. Physical resistance, mental resistance, emotional resistance. Each time you act anyway, you strengthen something invisible but essential: will. Will is not emotion. Will is decision sustained over time. When discipline becomes steady, suffering decreases. Not because life stops being hard, but because you stop fighting reality. You accept effort as part of existence. You stop asking why and start asking how. This acceptance is maturity. God listens to action because action is truth. Words can lie. Intentions can fade. Action reveals what you truly value. If you say something matters but you do not act, it does not matter to you. Discipline removes self-deception. This is the second step. Awareness showed you the edge. Discipline teaches you how to stand there without falling back. It gives you footing. It gives you strength. It prepares you for commitment. Move your body. Order your day. Cut what weakens you. Repeat. This is the prayer. When discipline has been established, when action is no longer a debate but a habit, life demands something deeper. Discipline can still be mechanical. You can act without fully giving yourself. You can move while keeping an escape route. This is where commitment is revealed. Commitment is not intensity, it is finality. It is the moment when the mind closes the door to retreat. God said no second chance, not to create fear, but to remove negotiation. As long as you believe there is another chance, you will always hold something back. You will conserve energy. You will delay full effort. You will test instead of decide. Commitment ends testing. It ends experimentation. It ends the inner dialogue of maybe later and if this doesn't work. Most people live with 1 foot in and 1 foot out of their own life. They discipline themselves partially, commit temporarily, believe conditionally. This divided state drains energy. Commitment reunifies you. All parts of you move in the same direction. There is no internal resistance because there is no alternative plan. No second chance means this: you act as if retreat is impossible. Not because you are trapped, but because you have chosen. This choice is liberating. When the mind stops scanning for exits, all energy moves forward. Fear decreases because fear feeds on options. Commitment reduces options to one. Shi Heng Yi often speaks about burning the bridge behind you. This does not mean recklessness. It means clarity. You remove the comfort of escape so that your effort becomes pure. When you know you cannot go back, you discover strength you did not know you had. Half effort is more dangerous than no effort. Half effort creates the illusion of trying while protecting the ego from responsibility. When results do not come, the ego says, "I didn't fully commit anyway." Commitment removes this lie. When you commit fully, results, whether success or failure, teach you honestly. December 17th, 18, and 19 are critical because they demand a decision that echoes beyond them. These days are not about doing more. They are about deciding fully. A fully decided mind is calm. It does not rush. It does not panic. It moves with quiet certainty. Commitment is not loud. It does not announce itself. It shows in consistency under pressure. It shows when no one is watching. It shows when the excitement fades and the work remains. This is why many people confuse motivation with commitment. Motivation is emotional. Commitment is structural. When you commit, your identity begins to shift. You stop saying, "I will try," and start saying, "I do." Language follows identity. The way you speak to yourself changes. Doubt loses its voice because commitment has already answered it. No second chance also means no self-betrayal. Every time you break a promise to yourself, you weaken self-trust. Commitment restores that trust. It is built each time you do what you said you would do, especially when it is uncomfortable. There is sacrifice in commitment. You will have to let go of distractions, relationships, and habits that cannot follow you forward. This loss can feel painful, but it is not punishment, it is alignment. You cannot move in one direction while carrying weight pulling you backward. Commitment simplifies life. Decisions become easier because your direction is clear. You no longer debate every choice. You ask one question: does this align with my commitment? If yes, you act. If no, you let it go. Fear appears strongly at the moment of commitment because fear senses its end. Fear thrives in indecision. Once commitment is made, fear loses leverage. It may still speak, but it no longer commands. God said no second chance because commitment requires urgency, not panic, but seriousness. You treat your life with respect. You stop wasting energy on things that do not serve your growth. You stop postponing the work that defines you. Commitment is not about controlling outcomes. It is about controlling effort. You commit to showing up fully, regardless of results. This removes anxiety about success and failure. You focus on execution, not prediction. At this level, excuses become transparent. You see them forming and dismiss them, not harshly, but calmly. Commitment does not argue with excuses, it outgrows them. There is loneliness in commitment. Not everyone will understand your seriousness. Some will feel uncomfortable around your focus. They may call you intense, rigid, or obsessed. Let them. Commitment is not for approval. It is for alignment. When commitment is real, discipline becomes easier. You no longer force yourself as much because your direction is clear. Effort flows with less resistance. You still feel fatigue but not confusion. No second chance does not mean you will never fail. It means you will never quit. Failure becomes feedback, not a reason to retreat. Commitment absorbs failure and converts it into learning. This stage demands courage because you are choosing a path without guarantees. But guarantees are an illusion anyway. Commitment accepts uncertainty and moves forward regardless. God speaks through commitment by giving you inner stability. When your decision is complete, your mind becomes quieter. The constant questioning stops. This quietness is strength. December 17, 18, and 19 are a line in the sand. Before them, you were preparing. After them, you are decided. Commitment turns preparation into identity. This is the third step. Awareness showed you the truth. Discipline trained your behavior. Commitment locks your direction. There is no second chance because you no longer need one. Night does something to a human being that daylight cannot. When the sun disappears and the noise of the world slowly dissolves, you are left with what you have been avoiding. The phone grows quiet, the streets slow down, and the roles you perform for others loosen their grip. At night you stop acting and you start feeling. This is why the message comes now. Not in the morning when ambition is loud, not in the afternoon when distraction is endless, but at night, when the soul finally has space to breathe. God speaks when the world is quiet because silence is the only place where truth is not interrupted. If you are seeing this tonight, it is not coincidence. In disciplined traditions, silence is never empty. Silence is full of instruction. It is full of signals you missed because your life was moving too fast. During the day, the mind is trained to react. At night, the mind is forced to reflect, and reflection is uncomfortable for those who have been running from themselves. You may feel a strange heaviness tonight, a pressure in the chest, a restlessness that does not let you sleep. That is not weakness. That is awareness waking up. God does not knock with noise. God arrives through alignment. Something in your life slowed down just enough for this moment to reach you. People often say they want guidance, but they fear the quiet that guidance requires. They fill their days with sound, so they do not have to hear their inner voice asking hard questions. Am I living honestly? Am I disciplined or just busy? Am I moving forward or simply repeating? Night strips away distractions. That is why thoughts you buried during the day return after midnight. Regrets surface, doubts speak, old memories replay. This is not punishment, this is communication. When God speaks in silence, it is not to condemn you, but to correct your direction. If you see this tonight, understand this clearly. Your soul has been trying to get your attention for a long time. The message did not come earlier because you were not ready to listen. Readiness is not excitement. Readiness is humility. It is the moment when you admit that noise has not saved you, pleasure has not fulfilled you, and rushing has not brought peace. Readiness arrives when you finally stop pretending to yourself. Night is honest. Darkness does not flatter. It simply reveals. In disciplined paths, especially those rooted in inner mastery, silence is treated as a teacher. You sit with it. You do not escape it. You do not numb it. You observe what rises inside you. Fear often comes first. Fear of wasted time. Fear of wrong choices. Fear that you are not enough. But if you stay still long enough, fear loses its power. Beneath fear is clarity. Beneath clarity is instruction. This is why God speaks when the world is quiet. Because only then are you no longer arguing with the truth. Think about how many signs you missed because you were too loud inside. How many warnings came as gentle discomfort, but you ignored them because they were inconvenient. How many opportunities passed because they required patience instead of impulse. Tonight is different. Tonight, something slowed you down, maybe exhaustion, maybe disappointment, maybe loneliness. Whatever brought you here, it served a purpose. God often uses weariness to bring wisdom closer. When the body is tired, the ego sleeps. When the ego sleeps, the soul can finally speak. You do not need thunder to recognize a divine message. You need attention. The strongest guidance often comes as a quiet knowing, a calm but firm realization that something must change. Not later, not someday. Now, if your heart feels heavy tonight, do not rush to distract yourself. Sit with it. That weight is not meant to crush you. It is meant to ground you. It is reminding you that you are carrying something unfinished, something unaligned, something unresolved. Silence reveals the load you have been dragging unconsciously. Many people fear night because night removes external validation. No one is watching. No one is applauding. No one is demanding anything from you. And in that emptiness, you meet yourself without titles, without excuses, without performance. This meeting is uncomfortable, but it is sacred. God speaks here because this is where honesty lives. You cannot lie to yourself in true silence. You can try, but your breath will expose you. Your thoughts will betray you. Your restlessness will confess what words never did. If you see this tonight, it means you are strong enough to face yourself. Weak people drown silence with entertainment. Strong people sit with it and learn. Discipline begins here, not in action, but in awareness. Awareness of what drains you. Awareness of what distracts you. Awareness of what you keep postponing because it scares you. God does not reveal everything at once. He reveals only what you are ready to carry. Tonight, you are ready for one truth. That truth may not be comfortable, but it will be liberating. Notice how night sharpens perception. Sounds feel clearer. Thoughts feel deeper. Emotions feel closer to the surface. This is not imagination. It is the nervous system relaxing its defenses. When you are no longer fighting the day, the truth rises naturally. This is why wise traditions value night meditation, night reflection, night prayer. Not because night is mystical, but because night is honest. God speaks when the world is quiet, because quiet removes the masks. You may be waiting for a sign that looks dramatic, something undeniable. But the real sign is subtle. It is the feeling that something inside you is asking for discipline, not motivation. For structure, not excitement. For depth, not noise. If you see this tonight, do not expect comfort. Expect clarity. Clarity often feels uncomfortable at first because it exposes the gap between who you are and who you know you must become. That gap is painful, but it is also powerful. It shows you where to train. Silence does not mean absence of God. Silence is the language God prefers when the listener is finally ready. Words can be misunderstood. Silence cannot. It forces you to interpret honestly. It forces responsibility. If you feel a call to change something tonight, do not ask for permission. That call itself is the permission. God does not beg. He invites. You choose whether to accept. Remember, this night is not the enemy of light. Night is where light is prepared. Seeds are planted in darkness. Muscles grow during rest. Wisdom forms in reflection. If your life feels unclear, do not fear the quiet. Enter it deliberately. Sit with your breath. Slow your thoughts. Let the message settle. God speaks when the world is quiet, because only then does the message land without resistance. If you see this tonight, take it seriously, not emotionally but practically. Do not promise everything. Decide one thing you will no longer ignore, one habit you will discipline, one truth you will stop running from. That decision, made in silence, is more powerful than 1,000 loud declarations. Night witnesses honesty, and what is decided honestly in silence shapes everything that follows. You are not alone in this quiet moment. Silence may feel empty, but it is crowded with guidance. Every generation of disciplined humans has sat exactly where you are now, facing themselves in the stillness, realizing that the real battle is internal. God speaks here because this is where transformation begins. Not with noise, not with urgency, but with awareness. Stay with the quiet a little longer. Do not rush back to distraction. Let the message sink into your bones. If you feel unsettled, that means something important is aligning. Growth does not announce itself loudly. It whispers first. Tonight, the whisper reached you. Most people misunderstand prayer. They think prayer is asking, repeating, hoping, waiting. They believe if they speak enough words, something outside of them will change. But prayer without preparation is noise. Prayer without discipline is wishful thinking. This is why so many people feel unheard. Not because God is silent, but because their life contradicts what they ask for. Discipline is the answer to every prayer, because discipline is proof that you are ready to receive what you are asking for. If you see this tonight, understand this deeply. God does not respond to desperation. He responds to alignment. Alignment between what you say you want and how you live when nobody is watching. You may pray for strength, but avoid discomfort. You may pray for clarity, but refuse silence. You may pray for success, but resist structure. This contradiction delays everything. Discipline removes contradiction. It brings your actions into agreement with your intentions. In the way of inner mastery, discipline is not punishment, it is respect. Respect for time, respect for energy, respect for potential. When you wake up at the same time every day, even when you do not feel like it, you are telling life that you are serious. When you train even when motivation disappears, you are telling God that you are dependable. Dependability is powerful. The universe does not invest in chaos. It invests in consistency. Many people wait for motivation to appear before they act. This is a mistake. Motivation is unstable. Discipline is calm. Discipline does not argue. It does not negotiate with emotions. It moves regardless of mood. If you are waiting to feel ready, you will wait forever. Readiness is built through repetition, not inspiration. God said, "If you see this tonight, stop waiting for signs and start becoming one." A disciplined life becomes a signal that attracts opportunity. Look honestly at your habits. They are your real prayers, not your words, not your hopes, your habits. What you do daily is what you truly believe. If your habits are weak, your prayers are confused. If your habits are strong, your prayers are clear. Discipline sharpens intention. It removes excess. It forces you to prioritize what matters instead of what feels good. This is why discipline feels uncomfortable at first. It exposes self-deception. In disciplined traditions, the body is trained first, not because the body is most important, but because the body does not lie. The body reveals your discipline immediately. How you breathe, how you sit, how you move. If you cannot control your posture, how will you control your impulses? If you cannot commit to simple routines, how will you handle responsibility when life becomes heavier? Discipline starts small, but its effects are vast. If you see this tonight, you may feel resistance rising as you read these words. That resistance is honest. It is the part of you that enjoys comfort, excuses, and delay. Do not fight it emotionally. Observe it calmly. Discipline is not about aggression. It is about clarity. You see resistance, and you move anyway. You do not hate yourself for feeling lazy. You simply do not obey laziness. This is mastery. God does not bless excuses because excuses keep you small. Excuses protect your current identity. Discipline challenges it. Growth requires the courage to disappoint the version of yourself that wants to stay comfortable. When you choose discipline, you are saying no to many small pleasures so you can say yes to something meaningful. This choice is spiritual. It shapes character. Character determines destiny. Think about how many times you prayed for change while repeating the same behaviors. You wanted different results with identical actions. This is not faith. This is avoidance. Faith is demonstrated through structure, through routine, through self-imposed order. When you organize your life, you create space for grace. When your life is chaotic, even blessings feel overwhelming. Discipline prepares you to carry what you ask for. If you are honest, you already know what discipline you are avoiding. It is usually simple, not dramatic. Sleep on time. Wake up earlier. Reduce distractions. Train your body. Train your mind. Speak less. Observe more. These are not heroic acts, but they are transformative. God works through the ordinary, repeated with sincerity. Miracles often look like consistency from the outside. Discipline also teaches patience. When you commit to a process without immediate reward, you develop inner stability. You stop chasing quick results. You stop comparing your progress to others. You understand that growth is internal before it becomes visible. This patience is rare. It is also powerful. Those who cultivate it cannot be shaken easily. They move steadily while others burn out. If you see this tonight, do not make grand promises. Make precise commitments. Discipline fails when it is vague. Be exact. Decide when you will wake up. Decide what you will train. Decide what you will remove from your routine. Precision creates momentum. Momentum creates confidence. Confidence is not something you feel first. It is something you earn through keeping small promises to yourself. God responds to movement, not rushed movement, intentional movement. When you take responsibility for your time, your body, and your attention, you become trustworthy. Trustworthiness attracts support. People trust you. Opportunities trust you. Life opens doors because you have shown you can walk through them without collapsing. Discipline also cleans the mind. A disciplined schedule reduces unnecessary decision-making. Less chaos means less anxiety. Less anxiety means clearer perception. Clear perception allows you to recognize guidance when it appears. Many people miss answers to their prayers because their mind is too noisy to notice them. Discipline creates silence inside action. Understand this: discipline is not control imposed from outside. It is freedom built from within. When you are disciplined, you are not a slave to impulse, mood, or environment. You act because you decide, not because you are pushed. This is real power, quiet power, the kind that does not need validation. If you see this tonight, let it be the moment you stop romanticizing change and start structuring it. Stop asking for ease. Ask for strength. Stop asking for comfort. Ask for resilience. God does not remove challenges to make you comfortable. He gives you discipline to make you capable. Do not underestimate how spiritual simple discipline is. Waking early, sitting in silence, training your body, limiting distractions. These acts align you with order. Order is divine. Chaos is exhausting. When you choose order, life cooperates, not instantly, but inevitably. You do not need to fix your entire life tonight. That would be ego. You need to fix your direction. Discipline is direction made visible. Choose one disciplined action and commit to it without negotiation. Let that action become your daily prayer. Over time, it will speak louder than words ever could. Remember this clearly. God is not impressed by intensity. He is moved by consistency. Show up every day, especially when it feels boring, especially when no one sees, especially when results are slow. This is where most people quit. This is where disciplined people separate themselves quietly. If you see this tonight, understand that you are being called not to believe more, but to act more cleanly. Align your life with what you ask for. Discipline is not the opposite of faith. It is the expression of it. When your actions become orderly, your prayers become powerful. Pain is one of the most misunderstood experiences in a human life. Most people label it immediately as punishment, failure, or bad luck. They ask, "Why is this happening to me?" and assume something has gone wrong. But pain does not arrive to destroy you. Pain arrives to train you. If you see this tonight and you are carrying pain, emotional, mental, or physical, you need to hear this clearly. God was not breaking you. God was preparing you. Look back honestly at your life. The moments that shaped you the most were not the comfortable ones. Comfort makes you soft. Ease makes you careless. Pleasure makes you forgetful. Pain, on the other hand, demands attention. It forces you to slow down, to question, to adjust. Pain interrupts patterns that were leading you nowhere. In disciplined traditions, pain is treated as information, not an enemy. It tells you where you are weak, where you are attached, where you need structure. If you are hurting tonight, it does not mean you are cursed. It means you are alive and being shaped. A sword is not forged in cool air. It is forged in heat intense enough to change its structure. The metal does not understand the fire, but without the fire, it remains useless. In the same way, you may not understand why certain losses, delays, or disappointments were necessary, but without them, your character would remain untested and fragile. God does not waste pain. Humans do. Humans either numb it, dramatize it, or run from it. Discipline teaches you to observe pain without becoming it, to feel it without letting it define you. Pain is temporary, but the strength built through it is permanent. Every time you survive something you thought would end you, your nervous system learns a new truth: you are stronger than you believed. This realization cannot be taught through comfort. Many people break not because pain is too heavy, but because they resist it mentally. They argue with reality. They replay the story of injustice. They compare their suffering to others. This resistance multiplies pain. Acceptance reduces it. Acceptance does not mean liking what happened. It means acknowledging what happened without self-pity. When you stop asking, "Why me?" and start asking, "What is this teaching me?" pain transforms into preparation. If you see this tonight, ask yourself honestly, what has pain already taught you? Perhaps it taught you boundaries. Perhaps it showed you who cannot be trusted. Perhaps it revealed how undisciplined your mind was when things were easy. Pain exposes illusions. It removes false confidence. It strips away identities built on approval and comfort. This stripping feels brutal, but it is merciful. God removes what cannot survive the next level before you arrive there. Think about how pain refines focus. When you are comfortable, your attention scatters. When you are hurting, your attention sharpens. Suddenly, meaningless things lose importance. Suddenly, you see clearly what matters and what does not. This clarity is valuable. It is dangerous to waste it. Many people rush to escape pain instead of learning from it. They miss the lesson and are forced to repeat it later, often at a higher cost. Pain also teaches patience. When progress is slow and outcomes are uncertain, you are forced to endure. Endurance is a rare skill. It cannot be developed through motivation. It is built through staying present when quitting feels justified. Pain trains your ability to remain steady under pressure. This steadiness becomes calm authority later in life. People trust those who have suffered well because their words carry weight. If you feel lonely tonight, understand this. Loneliness often appears before inner strength matures. When distractions fall away and people misunderstand your process, solitude increases. This is not abandonment. This is space. Space to hear yourself think. Space to reorganize your priorities. Space to detach from approval. God often removes noise before revealing direction. Solitude is painful at first, but it is also clarifying. It forces self-reliance. Pain humbles the ego. Ego believes it is in control. Pain proves otherwise. This humiliation is not meant to degrade you, but to balance you. A humbled ego listens, a humbled ego learns. A humbled ego becomes teachable. Pride blocks growth. Pain breaks pride quietly. This is why people who have never suffered often remain shallow. They have never been forced to look beyond appearances. If you are dealing with failure, understand this clearly: failure is feedback, not identity. It shows you what does not work. It reveals gaps in preparation. It highlights where discipline was missing. Failure hurts because it confronts self-image. But once the emotion settles, failure becomes a map. God does not shame you through failure. Humans shame themselves. God uses failure to redirect effort more precisely. Pain also builds compassion. When you have suffered, you recognize suffering in others without judgment. You stop speaking cheaply. You stop giving shallow advice. Your presence becomes calming because it comes from understanding, not theory. This compassion is strength, not weakness. It allows you to lead without force and influence without noise. Many leaders lack this because they avoided pain. Their authority feels hollow. If you see this tonight and you are tired of being strong, remember this: strength does not mean absence of pain. It means functioning with pain without letting it corrupt you. You are allowed to feel tired. You are allowed to feel hurt. You are not allowed to give up on discipline. Pain demands structure more than comfort. When life becomes heavy, routines become anchors. Without them, emotions take control. Notice how pain changes your relationship with time. When you suffer, you become more aware of moments. You stop assuming tomorrow is guaranteed. This awareness can turn into anxiety or gratitude. Discipline directs it toward gratitude. You begin to value small improvements: a calm breath, a focused hour, a disciplined morning. Pain teaches you to respect incremental progress instead of chasing dramatic outcomes. God prepares those He intends to use deeply. Preparation is rarely gentle. If your life feels harder than others, it does not mean you are unlucky. It may mean you are being trained for responsibility you cannot yet see. Responsibility requires resilience. Resilience is built under pressure. This pressure is not endless, it is purposeful, but only if you learn. Do not romanticize pain, but do not waste it either. Sit with it long enough to extract its lesson. Ask yourself what habits this pain is forcing you to abandon, what illusions it is dismantling, what strengths it is demanding you develop. Pain is a strict teacher, but a fair one. It only teaches what you need. If you are still standing after everything you have faced, that itself is evidence. Evidence that something inside you is unbreakable. You may feel damaged, but damage is not destruction. Cracks allow light to enter. Pain reveals depth you did not know you had. Depth is where real confidence comes from, not surface success. Tonight, do not ask God to remove all pain. Ask for understanding. Ask for endurance. Ask for clarity. Pain will pass. Preparation will remain. One day, you will look back and realize that what you thought was punishment was alignment. What you thought was delay was protection. What you thought was breaking you was actually making you precise. If you see this tonight, hold this truth firmly. Pain is not your enemy. Resistance to pain is. Face it calmly. Learn from it honestly. Move forward with discipline anyway. God is not finished with you. The fire you walked through did not consume you because it was never meant to. It was meant to shape you. Silence is the language of truth, but most people never learn how to listen because they are addicted to noise. From the moment you wake up, something is speaking into you: screens, thoughts, memories, fears, expectations, comparisons. Noise becomes normal, and when silence finally appears, it feels threatening. That is why tonight matters. God said, listen tonight, because silence is not empty. It is full of answers you have been running from. Silence removes your masks. When there is no sound to hide behind, no conversation to escape into, no distraction to numb you, you are left face to face with yourself. This is uncomfortable for the undisciplined mind because silence reveals truth without decoration. In silence, excuses collapse. Stories you tell yourself lose power. You begin to notice how restless you are, how impatient, how dependent on stimulation. This is not punishment. This is awareness. God does not bring silence to harm you. He brings silence to show you where you truly stand. Most people think guidance comes as a loud sign, a dramatic moment, a miracle that forces clarity. But real guidance is subtle. It arrives quietly, steadily, repeatedly. Silence is required because truth does not compete. Truth does not beg for attention. It waits. If you never slow down, you will miss it every time. God said, listen tonight, because tonight you are finally still enough to hear what has been waiting patiently. When the noise fades, the first thing you will hear is not God's voice, but your own inner chaos. Thoughts will race. Old memories will surface. Regrets will knock loudly. This is normal. Silence does not create these things, it reveals them. Many people mistake this discomfort as failure and immediately return to noise. But if you remain still, if you do not react, if you do not judge, the storm begins to settle. What remains after the storm is clarity. Silence teaches you restraint. It trains you to observe instead of react. In silence, you realize how much of your suffering comes from unnecessary movement, unnecessary words, unnecessary reactions, unnecessary resistance. When you sit quietly, breathing steadily, doing nothing, you begin to understand that peace is not something you chase. Peace is something that appears when you stop interfering. God speaks through patterns, not panic. Through intuition, not impulse. Through calm certainty, not emotional chaos. Silence creates the space where these signals can be noticed. Without silence, everything feels urgent. With silence, you begin to sense what truly matters and what does not. Problems that once felt overwhelming shrink. Decisions that felt impossible simplify. Not because life changed, but because your perception did. Listening tonight means listening beyond words. It means listening to your body, which has been warning you through tension and fatigue. It means listening to your breath, which becomes shallow when you live in fear and deep when you live in truth. It means listening to the quiet resistance you feel when something is not aligned. God uses these signals constantly, but you only recognize them when you slow down. Silence demands humility. You cannot dominate silence. You cannot argue with it. You cannot manipulate it. You must submit to it. And in that submission, ego weakens. The need to be right dissolves. The need to be seen fades. The need to control outcomes loosens. This is why silence is powerful. It humbles you without shaming you. It corrects you without attacking you. Tonight, when you sit in silence, you may feel exposed. You may feel small. You may feel uncertain. This is not weakness. This is honesty. God works with honesty, not performance. Silence removes performance. There is no audience, no validation, no applause, just you and what is real. This is where transformation begins. Silence also teaches patience. Truth does not rush. Insight unfolds slowly, layer by layer. If you expect instant answers, you will miss deeper wisdom. God said, listen tonight, not demand tonight. Listening is receptive. Demanding is aggressive. One opens the heart, the other closes it. When you stop forcing clarity, clarity finds you. In silence, you learn the difference between intuition and impulse. Impulse is loud, emotional, urgent. Intuition is calm, steady, persistent. Impulse says act now or lose everything. Intuition says wait, adjust, prepare. Without silence, these voices blend together. With silence, they separate. And once you recognize the difference, your life changes. Silence also reveals attachment. You begin to notice what you are afraid to lose, what you cling to, what you define yourself by. These attachments create suffering because they demand constant protection. In silence, you see them clearly, not to destroy them, but to loosen their grip. God does not ask you to abandon everything. He asks you to stop letting anything own you. Listening tonight means allowing silence to discipline you. Discipline is not harshness. Discipline is structure. Silence structures your inner world. It aligns your thoughts, steadies your emotions, grounds your energy. When your inner world is disciplined, outer chaos has less power over you. You respond instead of react. You choose instead of panic. Silence is also where forgiveness begins. Not the dramatic kind, but the quiet release. When you sit still, replaying the past becomes exhausting. Holding anger becomes heavy. Eventually, you realize forgiveness is not for others. It is for your nervous system, your clarity, your peace. God speaks through this realization gently, without force. Many people fear silence because they fear hearing something they cannot ignore. Silence removes denial. It confronts you with responsibility. If you feel called to change direction, silence will confirm it again and again until you either obey or numb yourself. God is patient, but truth is persistent. Ignoring it only creates tension. Listening releases it. Silence does not always bring comfort immediately. Sometimes it brings correction. Sometimes it brings grief. Sometimes it brings the realization that you have outgrown certain people, habits, or paths. This can feel lonely, but loneliness is temporary. Misalignment is permanent if ignored. God said, listen tonight, because realignment begins with awareness. In silence, you also discover strength you forgot you had. The ability to sit with discomfort without escaping builds inner power. You stop being controlled by mood. You stop being dragged by emotion. You become stable. Stability attracts clarity. Clarity attracts confidence. Confidence attracts peace. Silence trains you to trust yourself again, not your impulses, but your deeper knowing. The knowing that feels calm even when the decision is hard. The knowing that does not need validation. The knowing that remains consistent over time. God's guidance often arrives through this steady inner confirmation. When you practice silence regularly, life slows down even when it moves fast. You carry stillness with you. Chaos no longer enters you so easily. Criticism loses its sting. Praise loses its intoxicating effect. You become centered. This is not detachment from life. This is mastery within life. God said, listen tonight, because tonight is an invitation, not a command. An invitation to return to yourself. An invitation to stop running. An invitation to remember that wisdom has always been accessible, but never allowed silence as the doorway. Walk through it willingly. Please sit. Observe. Do nothing. Let thoughts pass. Let emotions rise and fall. Do not chase meaning. Do not force insight. Trust that what needs to be heard will surface when you are ready. This is listening. This is discipline. This is strength. And when you finally hear it, not as a voice, but as certainty, you will understand why silence was necessary. Because truth does not need volume. It needs presence. Discipline opens the door to divine guidance. But most people misunderstand discipline because they see it as restriction rather than refinement. They think discipline takes life away from them, when in reality, discipline gives life clarity. God said, listen tonight, but listening is not passive. Listening requires a prepared vessel. A chaotic mind cannot hold clear instruction. An undisciplined body cannot sustain a focused spirit. Guidance arrives where order exists. Look at your daily life. How you wake up, how you eat, how you speak, how you react. These are not small things. These are signals. God communicates through structure. When your life has no structure, messages become distorted. You ask for direction, but your habits pull you in 10 different directions at once. Discipline is what gathers scattered energy and points it toward one path. An undisciplined mind is loud. It jumps from thought to thought, from fear to fantasy, from regret to expectation. In such noise, even truth becomes confusing. Discipline trains the mind to stay, to focus, to remain present with one thing at a time. This is why monks train their attention. This is why warriors train repetition, not for perfection, but for reliability. God does not guide chaos. He guides commitment. Discipline begins with the body. If the body is restless, the mind will be restless. If the body is weak, the will becomes weak. When you control your posture, your breath, your movements, you send a signal inward, I am ready. Breath is especially important. Shallow breathing keeps you anxious. Deep breathing calms the nervous system. A calm nervous system hears more clearly. This is not spiritual poetry. This is practical truth. God said, listen tonight. But if you stay up scrolling, overstimulating your senses, feeding your mind random images and opinions, you close the door before guidance arrives. Discipline means choosing long-term clarity over short-term comfort. It means turning off what weakens you so you can turn on what strengthens you. Many people want signs, but they ignore routines. They want miracles, but they resist consistency. Yet consistency is the soil where miracles grow. When you wake up at the same time, pray or sit at the same time, move your body daily, eat with awareness, your system becomes stable. Stability sharpens perception. You begin to notice subtle shifts, inner nudges, quiet confirmations. Without discipline, these signals are drowned out. Discipline also reveals intention. What you repeatedly do shows what you truly value, not what you say, not what you promise. God responds to alignment, not words. When your actions match your prayers, doors open naturally. When they do not, frustration grows. Discipline closes the gap between desire and behavior. There is a reason ancient traditions emphasize fasting, silence, early rising, physical training. These practices strip away excess. They remove dependency. They teach you that you are stronger than your cravings. When cravings lose control over you, clarity increases. God's guidance often requires restraint before revelation. Undisciplined emotion is another barrier. Reacting instantly to every trigger exhausts your energy. Discipline teaches emotional delay, not suppression but pause. When something upsets you, discipline says breathe first. Observe. Respond later. This pause creates space for wisdom. Many mistakes happen not because guidance was absent, but because reaction was faster than awareness. God said, listen tonight, but listening also means stopping the habit of over-explaining yourself to everyone. Discipline your speech. Not every thought needs a voice. Not every feeling needs expression. When you speak less, you hear more. When you listen more, you understand more. Words leak energy. Silence stores it. Discipline is also about environment. What surrounds you shapes you. Messy spaces create messy thinking. Toxic conversations distort intuition. Constant negativity numbs hope. Discipline means curating what enters your mind. Music, content, people, atmosphere. This is not arrogance. This is self-respect. A clear channel does not allow pollution. Many people wait to feel motivated before becoming disciplined. This is backwards. Discipline creates motivation. When you act with structure, momentum builds. When momentum builds, confidence follows. When confidence grows, fear weakens. And when fear weakens, guidance feels safer to follow. God does not reveal the next step to someone who refuses to take the current one seriously. Small disciplines prepare you for larger responsibilities. If you cannot control your morning, how will you control your destiny? If you cannot manage your habits, how will you manage a calling? Discipline trains obedience without drama. You do what needs to be done whether you feel inspired or not. This steadiness is attractive to guidance. It shows readiness. It shows maturity. God does not need emotional intensity. He needs reliability. There will be days discipline feels heavy. Days when you want to quit routines, break structure, return to comfort. This is where discipline becomes devotion. You continue not because it feels good, but because it feels true. Over time, resistance fades. What was difficult becomes natural. What was forced becomes embodied. Discipline is not rigidity. It is conscious choice. It adapts without collapsing. It bends without breaking. True discipline makes you flexible, not brittle. Because when your inner foundation is strong, outer change does not destabilize you. Listening tonight requires this foundation. Without it, whatever you hear may excite you temporarily, but will not last. Discipline is what allows insight to turn into action. Action to turn into habit. Habit to turn into character. God said, listen tonight. But listening is a privilege earned through preparation. When you clean your inner house, guidance enters easily. When you respect your energy, wisdom respects you back. This is not about becoming perfect. It is about becoming aligned. One disciplined breath, one disciplined choice, one disciplined day at a time. And slowly, quietly, unmistakably, the path becomes clear. What you fear hearing is what you need most. And this is the truth almost no one wants to face. Fear is not random. Fear is a signal. It appears precisely at the edge of growth, at the point where comfort ends and transformation begins. God said, listen tonight, because tonight you may finally be quiet enough to hear the truth you have been negotiating with for a long time. Most people do not fear pain. They fear change. They fear losing an identity they have grown used to, even if that identity is built on suffering. They fear letting go of a story that explains their wounds. They fear responsibility more than hardship. When guidance arrives and says, leave, wait, forgive, discipline yourself, or stop, fear rises immediately. Not because the guidance is wrong, but because it threatens what you are attached to. God does not speak to entertain you. He speaks to realign you. And realignment always feels uncomfortable at first because it pulls you out of familiar patterns. Tonight, if you listen honestly, you may hear something you already know but have been avoiding. The repetition of that message is not coincidence, it is mercy. Fear grows louder when truth gets closer. That is why the moment you are about to change, doubts multiply. The mind begins producing reasons, justifications, delays. Not now. Later. What if I'm wrong? What will people think? These thoughts are not guidance. They are resistance. Resistance appears when ego feels threatened. The ego survives on control and certainty. Divine guidance rarely offers full certainty. It asks for trust. It asks you to move without seeing the entire staircase. This is where fear enters. The ego wants guarantees. God offers direction. The difference between the two is faith. Listening tonight means being willing to hear instructions that do not flatter you. Sometimes the message is not, "You are chosen," but "You are undisciplined." Not, "You are special," but "You are distracted." Not, "Hold on," but "Let go." Truth is not always comforting, but it is always freeing. Fear also appears when guidance challenges your emotional attachments. You may feel strongly connected to people, habits, or situations that no longer serve your growth. The thought of releasing them creates anxiety. You call it loyalty. You call it love. You call it patience. But deep inside, you know when something is draining you rather than strengthening you. God will not force separation, but He will highlight misalignment until you can no longer ignore it. Many people confuse fear with intuition. This is dangerous. Intuition is calm even when the message is hard. Fear is loud, rushed, and emotional. If the message you hear comes with peace beneath the discomfort, it is guidance. If it comes with panic and urgency, it is impulse. Silence helps you distinguish between the two. God said, "Listen tonight," because fear loses power when observed calmly. When you sit with fear instead of running from it, you see it clearly. You realize it is made of imagined futures, not present reality. Fear speaks in what ifs. Guidance speaks in no. Often, what you fear hearing is a call to responsibility. Responsibility for your choices. Responsibility for your habits. Responsibility for your healing. It is easier to blame circumstances, people, timing, or fate. But guidance will bring you back to one uncomfortable truth. You have more control than you want to admit, and with that control comes accountability. Fear also protects identity. If you change, who will you be? If you heal, what excuses will disappear? If you grow stronger, what relationships will no longer fit? These questions create resistance, but staying the same has a cost too. A quiet cost paid in frustration, resentment, and regret. God does not reveal truth to punish you. He reveals it to prepare you. The thing you fear hearing today is often the thing that will free you tomorrow. Growth always asks for courage before it offers peace. Listening tonight requires honesty without negotiation. Not listening with the intention to argue, reinterpret, or delay, but listening to understand. When you truly hear guidance, there is a feeling of recognition, a deep yes beneath the fear. That recognition is your compass. Fear diminishes when action begins. The longer you delay obedience, the larger fear becomes. The moment you take one aligned step, fear loses its authority. It does not disappear completely, but it no longer controls you. Movement dissolves doubt. God's guidance often repeats itself gently, through thoughts, through patterns, through inner discomfort, through external signs that mirror your inner conflict. Repetition is not pressure, it is patience, but patience has a limit. Ignored guidance eventually becomes pain, not as punishment, but as consequence. Listening tonight may mean accepting that you cannot carry everything forward. Some versions of you must be left behind. Some beliefs must die. Some expectations must be released. This feels like loss, but it is actually space being created. Fear tells you that letting go will empty you. Truth tells you it will lighten you. When you finally accept what you have been avoiding, something surprising happens. Tension releases. The inner battle quiets. You feel grounded. Even if the path ahead is uncertain, you feel aligned. That alignment is peace, not comfort. Peace, God said, listen tonight, because truth does not chase you forever. It waits, but it also moves on. When you are ready, it meets you where you are. When you are not, it leaves signals until you become ready. Do not ask for reassurance. Ask for courage. Courage to hear without defense. Courage to accept without resistance. Courage to move without full clarity. What you fear hearing is not there to destroy you. It is there to rebuild you properly. Sit with it. Let it speak. Let the fear rise and pass. Do not label it. Do not fight it. Observe it. And beneath it you will find something steady, calm, and undeniable. That is the voice you have been avoiding. That is the voice God asked you to listen to tonight.